Welcome back to another episode, and I'm very, very excited that you're here for this little bit of a bonus episode. I believe that it's important to always lead with transparency. And if you've been following me at all and watching my podcast, I am not going to ever tell you that real estate is easy because it isn't. There are times when it's so easy and the money is flowing in, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And then there are times when you're like, why did I do this? That's normal. And I want to share with you just something that didn't make the highlight reel last year on Instagram, right? I want to share with you just a moment that it really made me question it all. And property management in real estate will absolutely make you question it all. So let's jump into it. If you've been watching me for a while or you are on my newsletter, which shameless plug, if you're not on my newsletter, you should absolutely get on my newsletter. It's in the bio. I share so much juicy information, knowledge, and more behind the scenes of like what I'm doing and what's really happening in my life on my newsletter. So that does not make IG. So you definitely should be on the newsletter. But I shared that I had a pretty significant situation that what had happened was last year that truly, truly made me question, do I want to continue to do this? And we all have those moments, right? I had a moment where I seriously almost questioned, like, do I want to continue to do this? And it is not abnormal to have that moment. It is not always traveling through the south of France. It is not always, you know, deciding how I'm going to spend my day and it's amazing. I go to coffee shops and I float through the air. That is not how it always is. There are times where you have to do things that you absolutely don't want to. There are times that I do things that aren't cute, that aren't sexy, that aren't trendy, but it has to be done. My friends call me the queen of delegation. I will delegate something in a second. You know, I've had a personal assistant, home assistants, laundry service. Like your girl don't have a problem asking for help. But if you run a small business or you have owned property or whatever, there are times when the boss has to step in. Okay. And so this was one of those moments. And so let me run it through. Let me just kind of give you an overview of my property management journey. So when we first started buying properties, I just became a real estate agent and then I also started investing on the side. So this was my full-time job. So naturally I had the time, it was much easier for me to manage all my properties. And so we started out just managing our own properties. And then after a while, we began managing other people's properties because again, I was real estate agent. I will help people buy and sell homes. And then I started helping people buy and sell rental properties. And naturally they were like, oh, well, who can manage it for me? And I was like, sure, I'll manage it for you. And so over that time, I created a property management company. I created standard operating procedures and systems. I built out a team. I had property managers that worked under me, assistants, and this whole thing. And one time I had up to about 25 to 30 Airbnbs and long term rentals between my properties, and other people's properties that I managed. And so that worked. And then it didn't. I began also wanting to expand my portfolio of businesses. We opened the landscaping company. I opened the staging company. I began sharing with people online. I ended up increasing my real estate team. And I looked at how much I was making in property management. And I no longer wanted to spend my time doing that. Right. And so naturally, I kind of scaled that business off and I continued to manage my own properties, right? Through a property manager who worked for me. And I still just kept getting frustrated with that, kept still feeling like I was too much in the weeds because it's one of those things that once you know how to do it, you have a certain level of expectation how it should be done. And that's how I was feeling. So I was like, okay, I had a conversation with my business partner and he was definitely like pro hire the property management company because he had previously had really good experience with a property management company with his maybe like a couple properties that he had. My mentor, on the other hand, was like, I wouldn't do it. I have tried property management companies over the years, lots of them in different regions in different ways, and it's never successful. And I was like, no, this is different. It's going to be great. And yeah, so first property management company, they had some systems. They just didn't have the proper staffing. The staffing just wasn't detailed enough. They didn't have their internal checks and balances that really helped to make sure our properties were taken care of. And so, we cycled out of that. We did an extensive search. I mean, my operations manager did an extensive search between, all the things that I teach, like word of mouth, reviews, interviews, like all the things. Like we did all the things. Okay. First of all, it's really hard to find a good property management company in general. It really is. Again, if you have one or two properties and it's easy, it's just like a standard long term rental, you know, easy property, you're not going to feel it as much. But once you get into 5, 6, 10, 20, 30, 40, etc. properties, you begin to see things differently. If a company does not have solid systems plus staff, it will show really quickly. And so we onboarded the next company. We were happy to work with them. We had already worked with another property management company, so we kind of knew what we needed and how we needed to move going into this one. So one of the examples of systems that we set up was, like Monday check-ins to give a list of answers for a lot of these different questions because at the moment when we onboarded the second company, we had big vacancy problem because we had just purchased apartments and we had just finished renovating the apartments. And so we were in the process of renting those units out and we needed to rent them out quickly before because we could see that the market was changing. And they were really just having a hard time proactively leasing the units out. And so we needed a very hands on approach to understand that they were doing what they need to do on a weekly basis. And so one of the systems that I have in my business that I created is just a template that helps to ask a bunch of really important questions that they will go in and complete every Monday. Everyone is on the same page with like how many showings took place, how many applications took place, are there any pending applications, are there the people who are currently in the properties, are they late? If they are late, what type of communication has been given to them? Who wants to get on the phone every week and have that conversation? And if you don't have that conversation and you just wait until you get your owner statement, that's reactive, right? That doesn't work either. So again, because I've ran a property management company before, I know what works. It wasn't that it wasn't working why I didn't do it. I wanted to allocate my time differently. Even if I had someone working for me, I didn't want you still have to manage the manager, which is something you have to do even if you have a property manager that's like a third party company. You still need to manage the manager. No one is going to take care of your properties like you will. At the end of the day, no one, no employee, no property manager, no assistant, no one is going to take care of your properties how you will. So we had this system. We, was highly just involved and all that kind of stuff. And so one of the first red flags that we've seen was that they didn't do what they said they were going to do. Was one of the things that was really important to us was we already had a group of vendors that we had vetted that had been working on our properties that were really good and they were also affordable. So we told them we had a list of vendors. We gave them the list and they said that they also had a list of vendors as well. And then we said, okay, well, let's try it out and see. So they would send us estimates for different repairs and things like that from their list of vendors. And again, I do this. I know how much things cost. I'm not a person who renovates properties every 5 years. Like if you tell me that you need to replace a roof and you tell me the square footage of the house, I know how much the roof should cost at this point. When you're new and you're starting out, you don't know that. You're learning that over time. But I know that. My husband know that. We know how much things should cost. And so they began sending invoices for things that were 2 to 3 times more than what the cost really should be. And so we started to learn, oh, okay, well, not only your vendors high, but you are also getting a fee off of what the vendor is charging. First kind of problem. Again, are they your advocates or are they looking out for themselves? Right. And there's a number of other things that, were problems like customer service and, you know, clean up and being organized. Another big thing is when you have a lot of properties, you have to be organized. Imagine having 10 keys. Like if you have 10 properties, that means you potentially have 10 keys. How are you organizing those keys? If you don't have keys and you want to be technology savvy and you want to do keyless and you want to do like the codes. Okay, so what are the codes, right? What do you have alarms? What are the alarms? You have to be organized. And so we started recognizing that they were not organized. Even though the property manager had been managing for 16 years, they were old school. They were not organized in a way that was efficient for our portfolio. And so one of the biggest straw that broke the camel's back, a lot of my properties are in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. Georgia is on paper blue, a more, let's see. Okay. Georgia is blue currently, politically on the edge, kind of, but it's really red. Okay. It's really historically, when I say red or blue, I mean, it leans conservative or liberal. Okay. And so that's important. It's important specifically with real estate because certain laws lean to be more landlord friendly versus tenant friendly. Okay. As a landlord, I appreciate the landlord friendly states. Those are the states that I invest in, is the landlord friendly states. And so Georgia is a more landlord friendly state. But here's what I learned through this process, that even though your state can be more landlord friendly, is your city. Because even though Georgia is landlord friendly, Atlanta is not. And I learned this the hard way. So, in my city that I invest a lot of properties in, Atlanta, Georgia, we have an extreme problem with scammers. Okay. Scammers of all kinds. I mean, I have seen some unique, innovative scamming. I don't understand why the scammers just don't create legitimate companies. Okay. But that's another thing. That's another thing for another day. Okay. I have seen some crazy scammer situation. So because I know my city, right? I gave very, very, very strict stipulations when I first onboarded the property management company that we will not do any self leasing boxes. Okay. Let me tell you what that is. Those are these boxes where you can just conveniently put them on the property, and if someone is looking to lease a property, they'll drive by. They can just put in their phone number and put in their credit card information, and then it'll just pop the key out for them, and then they can just go and look at the property. Okay. That runs rampant in Atlanta for squatters. Okay. There are professional people, there are Instagram pages, there are courses. Okay. Yes, courses that teach people how to squat in your house. Did you know that? Yes, this is a real thing. And it's not just a problem in Atlanta, it's a problem in places like New York, in California, in Chicago, lots of other major cities. Okay. So, because I am aware of this, because I do this, right? I specifically said there should be no self leasing properties on our properties. If you want this portfolio of all these properties, you have to be willing to actually do showings on these properties. Okay. You can be as efficient as possible, right? But you got to do showings. Yeah, 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 yeah. They're selling you. They want your business. They want your percentage every month. They want the fees that they're charging you. That's how they make money. It's, yeah, yeah, we can do that. We agree to that. We agree. I've been seeing da. Okay, cool. So I was at home one day and I was checking in with the property manager, having a conversation over the phone, just kind of following up with an email that I seen. And she mentioned somebody like doing a showing or something like that, but she didn't mention it as if she was going to be on the property. And I was like, wait, hold on. So can you clarify? Did you go and actually show them the property or did they show themselves somehow? And she's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. They just, just on one of the units, I put, one of the self-leasing boxes. It makes it convenient." I was like, "Didn't I say, wasn't I very clear?" This is the part where, I have to like keep my composure, but wasn't I very clear, very specific that I don't want those boxes. This is Atlanta. I don't want someone to do that. And the history of it is when I was self leasing at one time, I used one of those boxes and someone duplicated our rental listing to say that they were leasing the property. Okay. And took someone's money. And before they moved in, I was able to basically speak with them and just say, no, this is not their listing, and all this. And they were able to go after that person before they moved into the property. Okay. And so I'm aware of that this happens. And since then, I've never done any of those boxes ever again. And it's been fine. And so I tell her this and I tell her, go and get the box today. Like, get it out of there quickly, okay? Because I mean, these folks are looking for vacant properties. They are looking to squat in your property for free, all right? As long as possible. They know the law, they know what their rights are, and I'm going to tell you more about that. This story is crazy, by the way. Just it's crazy. So I tell her that and she's like, "Oh, okay, okay, okay." So she goes over to get the box and guess what? She calls me. I just wanted to let you know that I went to go and get the box and I was actually doing a showing and I ran into this guy who was in the property. Someone else had already moved into the property. Yes, that happened. Okay. It happened and it was a horrible experience. So to make a long story short, the next part that was just so crazy that just the day I almost wanted to burn it all down. Let's talk about that day. My husband had went back and forth and was trying to work it out with them and was like, can you leave? We'll go ahead and we'll pay you for a hotel. One guy, it was 2 units. It was a building. It was 2 units. And one guy, he squatted and then he basically found someone else to pay him to squat in the next unit. Okay. And she had a kid. It was a really bad situation, right? And so my husband was like, "Look, I will pay for you to stay in a hotel for a week. I'll give you $500." And the dude said to my husband, I'm not moving unless you give me 4 bands. I'm not moving unless you give me 4 bands. Translation for the folks who don't know ghetto language. That means I'm not moving until you pay me $4,000 to move out of your property. Yes. Y'all see that meme that be like this? This is what we said. Okay. So again, I think at the time we were traveling a lot and then we had to like go to the court. And so we're trying to navigate it. But in the meantime, while we're traveling and trying to go to the court and do all that stuff to do the formal process, we still trying to, do our little workaround process. You got to do cash for keys. We're trying to do that. So our last kind of workaround process just went horribly. And that was the day where I just wanted to burn it all down. Okay. We lived in the hood for a little bit. So we know some hood people. Okay. And that's just how it is when you live in the hood. You meet hood people. And so we had some hood people who was like, okay, I can go in and if they're gone, I can board up the building and change the locks. I was like, cool, that works. Let's do that. That's fine. They were gone and they boarded up the building. They were almost finished with changing out the locks, almost done. And then one of the guys comes up. He comes up and he's like, "Hey, what are y'all doing? What's going on?" Da, da, da. My husband's there. And he's like, "Man, I told you you're supposed to be out. You said you was going to leave," because he said he was going to leave, but of course he didn't. And you didn't leave. And so you know what that man did? He called the cops on my husband. That man called the cops on the person who owns the property. Okay. So here's our rights. Legally, I don't remember what date it was, but at the time this was legal. If a squatter was caught in your property in Atlanta, it is now supposed to be considered a criminal suit. All right. It's supposed to be considered a criminal charge, which means that they are supposed to be arrested. All right. So my husband's like, cool, whatever. And we had already called the cops before when it initially happened. So this is like, multiple times. It's this point, the second time the cops have been out. So now the cops come out and the cops say they're talking to my husband and they tell him, this is the part where he was on the way to the airport. I was at home. My mom was here too. And I was just about to lose it. And it takes a lot for me to lose it. I am the most chill I am so chill most of the time. Like, it takes a lot to rattle me. Woo, it's hard to even tell y'all this story today. Okay. So the guy who is squatting in my house called the cops on us. And the cops came back and said to my husband, if you don't give this man this new key, I'm going to have to take you to jail, my husband. I was so pissed. I was so pissed. I think, and it was a blessing though, because I think if it was me, I would have been like, take me to jail. I would have been like, take me to jail. And so my mom was like, you don't want your black husband going to jail. Just let him go. And it took so much restraint to give that man who is squatting in our house, costing us money. We do not own this property like free and clear. We have a mortgage on this property, okay? It took so much restraint to give this squatter the keys to the property. Lord Jesus. That day I was like, I messaged my friends and I was just like, I don't know, y'all. I think this is it for me. So if you've ever had that, you're not alone. Okay. We're gonna all have that a couple times. Okay. It's normal. But at the end of the day, it all worked out. We went through, we had like a loophole that we found out that my mentor walked us through. It's called squatters' rights affidavit, where we were able to prove that we were the property owner, fill out an affidavit to avoid having to go through the formal eviction process, which could have taken 6 months easily. And instead, it took about 30 days to file this squatter's eviction affidavit. And then we were able to have them removed. And yeah, that was a hard lesson. That was a hard one. So one of the things that, again, I learned is that we don't do the self-leasing boxes. Number two, secure your property. If your property is vacant, secure it. Have cameras, have alarms. Don't get caught slipping. That was a big one. All right. And I have some more, but I can't say it publicly. If you're in my community, I'll tell you, face to face. I can't say it publicly because I can't let y'all hold me to it. But all that to say, a big part of this building wealth through real estate process is you have to stay in the game. Okay. There's so many benefits from investment in real estate. I mean, you may be watching this and you may be like, see, that's why I'm not doing this. No, no, not doing it. And if I let times like that have happened once in 10 years, okay, of investing, if I let a really, really hard, really, really hard, not gonna lie, it was not easy. If I let a hard season like that completely say, I don't want to do it, I miss out on so many things. Okay. I miss out on the freedom of being able to just pick up and go when I want to. I miss out on the margin that I have with my kids. I miss out on how the probably at this point millions of dollars I have saved in federal taxes. You just miss out on the community of people that I have met along the way, along this real estate journey, miss out on the impact of helping the tenants that I have been able to serve and help through providing housing, right? And just all the other amazing benefits in businesses and other opportunity and travel and showing my kids the world and all these other things that real estate has brought to me because I was so focused on this thing, right? Instead of looking at this as a failure, I look at it as a lesson, right? And some lessons are really, really hard and some lessons are little like, things you can kind of quickly step over. But ultimately, if you're able to have systems, you're able to have processes, you're able to learn from it, you're able to have people around you that help you not give up when it gets hard, that's how you keep going. At the end of the day, when I am old and gray, or even in the next couple years, when I decide, you know what, I just want to chill and just do nothing, I will have those options under 45 because of real estate investing. And so that's why I just wanted to share that because you hear these amazing stories and it is amazing. It brings a lot of benefits, but it also brings really, really hard things too. Okay. But having a community is a game changer. It really, really is. So if you are not a part of a community, you really got to be one. So let me know. What are your thoughts? What are your questions that you have about property management, squatters, all the things? Let me know below. I love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening. Share this with a few people that need to avoid this situation too, okay? And I will see you on the next episode of Wealth Within Reach. Thank you. Peace.